Hey folks, welcome back to our classroom. Here with a special guest, Bea Jackson, who is the illustrator of many books, including Summer is Here. Listen, I don't know if y'all checked this out or not. I'm sure many of you have, written by Renee Watson. And Renee was supposed to join us, but unfortunately, our schedules didn't align for this particular interview. We'll have her in the future. Thankfully, Bea Jackson is available. New York Times best-selling illustrator, excuse me. And B encapsulates a moment in time with her work. Even as you look at some of these beautiful illustrations, you just notice how much it pops. I'm not an illustrator, so I'm probably not even using the right language, but that's how I could describe what I see. The illustrations just stand out, they pop. And B challenges herself to combine boundless imagination with experiences and emotion and capture the result on paper. A lifelong collector of both picture books and comics, she admires art's ability to speak perfectly on its own and translate ideas without words. As a digital painter using textures that mimic pastels, oil paints, and watercolors, she pursues the rainbow in her palette, seeking to add a touch of childhood magic to her work. Thank you, B, for being here, and I'm looking forward to learning from you, to talking a little bit about Summer is Here, but really understanding your process, understanding your vision, understanding how it is that you make an impact through your work as an illustrator. So welcome to our classroom.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And this lovely book, Summer is Here. Wow. It really resonates with me because when I look at the characters, they remind me of my children, that remind me of other children in my life, family members, friends, kids in the neighborhood. And so I think you just did a wonderful job of taking Renee's words and building on this notion of summer and connecting with summer, which is my favorite season for sure, for sure. And I live in Florida, so it feels like summer most of the year here. So beautiful work that you did with this book. And I would love for you to share what words you would use to describe your body of work across your books, including Summer is Here.
Okay, well, I love to explore themes of friendship, family, genuine connections, and just a lot of times when I do my artwork, I have to reach into my own memories. And if the memories aren't mine, I ask the author like what their visions are so I can translate it to the page. So at the core, the illustration is about communication. Either is
Mhm.
communicating my ideas or the voice of the authors that I do artwork for.
Hmm. And I guess I'm thinking, trying to put myself in your shoes as an illustrator, but I'm also thinking about my daughter who loves to draw. Like, what advice would you offer a young illustrator? And my oldest daughter is 9 years old. What advice would you offer a young illustrator in terms of how to use illustrations to effectively communicate?
Well, you have to be willing to think outside the box. I think sometimes when it comes to illustration, um, a lot of artists can be really hard on themselves,
Mm,
or like they might not think that they're as good as someone else, or they might struggle in different ways. And in my experiences, I've had to quiet a lot of that noise and just allow myself to have fun with the experience. You always have to keep in mind why it is that you love to draw, and that keeps you at the core of like what's important to you. And the secondary side of it is the communication side, because if you're not in the right headspace, it might be difficult to reach that point. So I think that you have to have a peace of mind about what you do, with joy about what you do, whether it's telling your stories or walking in other people's shoes through the other authors' stories. And just remember that the message is the most important thing, not so much the technique and like all the different skills, because you can have a beautiful image that doesn't communicate anything. Whereas you can have something that might be a little less polished that communicates a world of stories to a lot of people. So at the core of it, continue to have fun with drawing. Remember why you love it. Don't let all the training or the, the all the technical things of it ruin the fun of it, and keep the message at the forefront.
So why do you love drawing? Why do you
Well,
love being an illustrator?
well, it's always been an opportunity for me to dive into my imagination. Like I have a very vivid imagination, and like honestly, from I would say from before the age of 10, it's hard for me to distinguish what was real and what wasn't because my imagination was just so vivid. And I spent a lot of time alone. I was raised in a single mother household, so it was just me and my thoughts, me and the piece of paper that's in front of me or whatever movies I watch. So I would just get lost in my own world, and I was so excited about it. Everything was so vivid. I wanted to draw it. And it started with movies. I would watch, I think one movie that I remember vividly watching is Starship Troopers. And I was like, it'd be really cool to see like an alien goddess on the planet that they got to encounter. Instead, they just encountered a lot of nasty bugs. But, but that little simple thing of wanting to see something different inspired me to draw. It inspired me to write. And I would do all these stories and build all these characters up. And I have like stacks of folders of old drawings from, me just exploring these ideas. So I would say what I love most about drawing is the escape that it gives me to be
Mm.
able to just kind of sink into my own mind and that wonderful world that goes on in there. It's chaotic, but it's fun,
That's
So
great. That's great. Well, let's push that. Let's go a little bit deeper. Can you continue to bring us through your creative process? What does that look like for you now when you're working on a new project? And we know you have a lot going on. We understand that. But bring us into your world. Give us a glimpse of how it is that B. Jackson brings about these amazing illustrations.
well, I think like when I was younger, I looked up to a lot of different artists. So I am self-taught. So I would take like a lot of different avenues to approaching an illustration. Like the vision in my mind is usually very strong. Getting it onto the paper is another story. And sometimes as I mentioned, the technical side of things would get in the way of me just getting my vision onto the canvas. So after so many years of that and kind of being hard on myself in that way, I just decided to just start throwing things on the canvas and seeing what comes out. It just removed all of the rules and steps and everything that can lead up to an illustration. And so it's just, I'll start with a splotch of color sometimes. Like when I do my sketches, they're they're really rough, but the message is there. So it'll be a splotch of color. And then I'll just start to refine it over time. Whereas some artists, they'll do the line art first and then they'll fill in with colors. My process is pretty backwards. It allows me to just jump straight in. I jump straight into color. I jump straight into form and shapes and just fill it out as it goes. And that's what I found has made the process a lot more enjoyable for me. And then you get a lot of textures in my artwork through that process where I'm not like polishing it out, trying to be too perfect with it.
So how does it work when you have a new project on your plate? For example, summer is here. Did you have distinct goals when you were working on Summer is Here as opposed to some of your other works?
Well, the distinct goal with Summers here is that it was a strong emphasis on summer fun. So I just remembered what summer was like for me and tried to dig into that. Like I had a lot of family reunions and we would like I was part of a gang of neighborhood kids that would just run around all day. We would swim and like have these different adventures and stuff. So I just tried to pull from those experiences and combine those experiences with Renee's words to kind of emphasize like what it is, like what that summer experience has been. So that was my main goal there. And then also like in speaking with Renee, she did say that like summer itself is a character in the story. And I interpreted that as well through my artwork. And I tried to show it in the sun rays that would shine or like the wind. And I would use the flowers to kind of emphasize where summer's going. Like if you'll see, if you look through the book, you might see petals flying around, or especially towards the end, you see the petals flowing off the flowers. It's kind of an indication of like summer being like a soft breeze that's is here for a moment and then it starts to slip away to make room for the next season. So those are different things that I tried to communicate and just really pay attention to what the words were trying to convey and bringing it into a visual form.
That that's great. And you mentioned that you're self-taught. I'm wondering if you have any influences in terms of illustrators, past or present, and if not, just influences in general that really help to inspire some of your work.
Yeah. So the digital painting aspect of my work came about because when I first got the internet, I got exposed to comic books and anime. So it was one artist in particular. His name was Michael Turner, and he had a series of comics called Fathom. And I really loved his artwork. He was also self-taught artist, and he wasn't really, I guess, at the time widely accepted in the comic industry. So he formed his own set of comics. So I really admired him, and I was like, well, in order for me to learn from him, I have to figure out how he does his work. So I found out that the comics were colored digitally. So I was like, okay, I have to do it digitally, if I'm going to be like him, because my dream was to work with his comics one day. And so I started off with MS Paint and a mouse, and then I upgraded to like old versions of Adobe. So I was actually doing digital paint, painting digitally before it was widely accepted. And even some cases, it wasn't considered real art at the time because it wasn't physical. So I ran into that a lot. My father is also an artist. He inspired some of my work as well. He taught me how to draw my first eye. He would like walk me through different steps, and he does airbrush art. But he's also able to kind of bring his visions from his mind onto the canvas. And but those were my two earlier inspirators, people who inspired me in my artwork. Unfortunately, I never got to meet Michael Turner. He passed away, so I never got to see that dream. But he inspired me to create. He's the one that made me decide I wanted to be an artist full time. And I went to college, and that's when I actually had some formal training. In which case I learned about some other artists because for most of my life I was just in a bubble. It was just me at home by myself with a bunch of line paper or printer paper drawing. So I didn't know like classical artists. I only knew I could figure out on the internet. And even then it was kind of hard, like using dial up to find these things. So when I went to college, I learned about Norman Rockwell. And I was very fascinated by his work because he would capture moments in time through his illustrations. He was also very different in his day because the form of art that was more accepted was more posed. And I guess I can't remember specifically what themes were going, but I know he stood out in his time for like his ability to just capture moments in time. He didn't want to create like these perfect images where everybody looks perfect. So he would show kids running or making goofy faces, or just it's like somebody just snapped a picture. So I tried to incorporate that into my artwork. And the other figure that really stands out to me, and this is the last one. I mean, there's others, but these are like the big ones, is Kadir Nelson. I love his artwork. I love the way that he illustrates black characters, black skin. Um, Black skin is can be very difficult to paint, because there's so many shades and tones that you don't consider that it's harder to get it to come out through the painting process. Like you have to sprinkle in the rainbow in the skin because our black skin is also very reflective. So learning from him, I learned how to paint black skin a lot better. And I love his themes. I love his books. I have a lot of his books. I even will collect some National Geographic magazines because he had his artwork was on it. So those are my main influences and how they each affected me in different ways.
Hmm. So fascinating to hear and gather perspectives of an illustrator and how it is that your work is informed. Even as you're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I probably would have never considered this or would have framed uh, the words to describe black skin as you just did, right? You know, the rainbow and it being reflective. So it's helpful for me to learn and get into your mind and understand how illustrators see things and describe things. And I'm interested about how your father views your work, given that he's one of the individuals that inspired your work through his own work and painting. And so, how does he engage with your work? How has he viewed your work? What type of feedback has he offered you?
Well, he's very proud right now.
Should
Me
be.
and my father.
He absolutely should be.
Yeah. So he doesn't offer much feedback. Because me and my father, we work in very different ways. Like I'm exclusively digital, he's exclusively traditional. So he loves to make like cutouts and spray paint them, and he does like body paint and things like that. So we both respect each other in our different fields. We probably couldn't step into each other's shoes in that regard. So we're trying to kind of come to the middle. So he really wants to do something where we're Jackson and Jackson, like father and daughter team,
Wow.
where we combine our different skill sets. So I could help bring his artwork into a more digital format, like to maybe cut into like a print market or like other types of markets where he can take my artwork into more of a physical format where we can combine ideas and stuff. So that's something that we're looking to explore. We're both in different stages in our career where we kind of have a bit more flexibility to do that. So I don't know how it's gonna go, but like he's a wonderful man. I respect him a lot, and you know I just want to like I would like to see how that turns out. Like if we do get to do a Jackson and Jackson team up.
Yes, Jackson and Jackson art. I love it. I love it. I wish I knew how to draw and illustrate. I'd do something with my daughter, but she's just gonna have to illustrate a book that I write.
Yeah.
You mentioned the phrase moment in time. Is there something that, let me reframe this. If you had the opportunity to do so, and I know you have different projects going on, but if you could just stop all your projects and you'd be like, you know what, I have this time, I'm going to do this, I'm going to seize this, I'm going to capture this moment in time, what would it be? What's the thing that you would capture right now?
Well, one thing that I love fantasy, so there's always a magical element to it. But one thing that I've been wanting to do, and this is just like something more casual. I've been really pushing myself to meet new people, like have new experiences and stuff, because I'm a very introverted person by nature. And in order to kind of break out of that, I have to kind of put myself in spaces where I have to be more extroverted. And it can be, painful and also rewarding at the same time because I wouldn't meet so many wonderful people if I did not step outside of my comfort zone. So like I would love the moments that I would like to capture is meeting these different people. So I wanted to do like little portraitures of different people I meet. And not everybody I meet I talk to. I might run into somebody in the street and I'm like, oh, your outfit's cool. And I was like, can I take a picture of it so I can draw it later? And some people are very open to that. So I have a few pictures of just random people that I met that just, struck a chord with me in different ways. And I would like to immortalize that through like doing these different portraitures so that like however many years down the line, I have this tapestry of all these faces of people that I've met and the stories that, I have from those experiences. It's like taking that moment and remembering it forever, like a photograph. It's just locked in my memory right now. So, and in my phone.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. So what you've mentioned unifying themes in your books. Can you share a memorable reaction or feedback from a child or parent that reaffirmed the impact of your work?
Yes. So I would say the most notable experience was it wasn't in the book format. It was actually in the series that I did for Target Wonder Shop, where I got to design some Christmas decorations. And I when I first got that opportunity, I was like, I've never done any work like this in the terms of, you know, having it be on the shelf in the form of gift wraps or anything like that. So I was like, I really don't know what to do, but I asked them if I could, just create a character and, tell a little story through that character through like 4 illustrations. And then different elements in those different illustrations could be used for other things to kind of build the theme up, build up the collection. So I created this little girl that was inspired by my childhood Christmas experiences. She's curly hair and freckles, and there's one image where she's like wanting to steal the cookies and the cakes off the table that were made for Christmas. There's another where she's bundled up in scarves that her grandmother made. And so when I first did that series, there was a little bit of back and forth because it was like we usually don't see stuff like that in the store. Or like I have. So, you usually just see like the regular Santa Claus, or you might not see characters that, that have our skin tone or are
Right.
black. So I was like, it would be really cool if, I could go into the store and see something like this. So I was given the creative freedom to do that, and which I am extremely grateful for because it took me outside of the box. I love to have that creative freedom. And that same need that I felt to kind of have that type of imagery in the store was resonated with very strongly when it actually hit the shelves. It became a collector's item for a lot of people. And I've had so many people sending me pictures of their little girls, like, is that me on the box? And I was like, it did its job.
That's
Like,
right.
I want people to go into the store and see themselves or like see their daughter. And, I wish I could have did more characters. I just didn't have, I just didn't have the room to do it. But I had a lot of people share that experience that it was just like a stop in their tracks, wow moment. Is that me? You know? So that just made it all the more rewarding and made me have more trust in my own ideas and the direction I wanted to take with it, that it was a good one, even though it felt risky at the time.
Now, do you go out there and seek certain projects based on themes you want to explore? Or is it, you just kind of vet them as they come your way? If it suits you, then wonderful. How does that work?
I'm more so vet things as they come my way. Like I might meet people and they'll share their ideas. I mainly want to stick with things I can that promote connectivity, connection with people. Um, because in my mind, the world is really dark in a lot of different ways, and it's easy to show that darkness or kind of fall into it. And I would rather show the things that people have in common that bring them together than the things that separate us. And so that's why I really like to focus on family, good family moments. There's a lot of people that have traumas because their family structure just wasn't great, you know, and I want to tell a story that, you know, family can be in your friends, it can be in other connections that you have, because I've had those experiences. So I try to focus on those things in the positive and connect with people in those different ways to show healthy dynamics. And even if it's not a healthy dynamic, I try to show ways to kind of navigate around things depending on the book that it is that I'm working on. I just try to keep a lot of things like that into consideration in terms of the storytelling. And I also like doing historical books, especially if it's somebody that I don't know about, because it's educational for me as well. Like
Absolutely.
if I'm to communicate another person's story, it's kind of like going into a movie blind. You know, you really don't know what you're going to get, but if the experience is fresh for me, I could also make it fresh for other people that are reading it, because I have to expose myself to this, you know, this information. It helps me to tell the story better. It helps my curiosity to know more about this different person. And it's a learning experience. It makes my job a lot harder, but you know, it's a learning experience. And then I get
You,
to tell that story to other people.
does it, when you say it makes your job a lot harder, you mean because you have to go about the process a little bit differently? You need to look at photos of the individuals, things of the sort?
Yeah, so it's harder in that I'm not relying solely on my imagination to get the image across. There's a lot of respect and care that you have to apply towards biographical pieces that are more biographical. So I might have uh so I had to do well, I did the book for Bayard Rustin, Unstoppable. I had never heard of him before. I didn't know his role in the civil rights movement. But he was relegated to the background, even though he was a major player in planning the March on Washington. He was relegated to the background because he was an openly gay Black man. So they didn't want his image to kind of ruin the movement. So he had to take a back seat. So we're just now learning about him. So there aren't a lot of pictures of him. Um, Most of the pictures that I am able to find of him were in black and white. And a lot of the settings, the flyers that were around at that time, I don't know what any of those things look like. so so I have to do like a lot of research to kind of like fill in the gaps. Like what was his actual skin tone? Like was he dark skin or was he light skin? Because I don't know. What does he look like when he smiles? What does he look like when he's upset? Like all these different things. Like we live in a very digital age where we can see a person's face every which way, 3D mapped, all the different expressions and stuff like that. So just trying to capture that emotion, it can be a lot harder if you don't know what the person looks like in different states. And the colors, like a lot of the pictures back then, even though they were taken in color, they were printed in black and white. So we only see the black and white versions. So it's like, what did the colors look like back then? Like if you look at the stuff from like the 90s, everything is vibrant, hot pinks and stuff
Right.
like that, whereas the 70s is more saturated browns and golds. So it's like, what did it look like in the 50s? You know, what could they print? What colors could they use? So those are all things that come to mind when I'm trying to step back into that moment in time with limited information.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, the 90s was characterized by cross colors.
Very fun time.
Oh yes, oh yes. If you had the opportunity to have lunch with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Um, I would probably have lunch with Vashti Harrison. She's another children's book artist that I greatly respect. I look up to her and the stories that she tells. And we had a moment a few years ago when we were both at the BET Children's Books Awards. So we were both like nominees and stuff, but So I had a brief moment to see her and talk to her. So I was like, I would love to have that opportunity again and just, reconnect and learn from her. So like she's in such a wonderful place in her career. And I feel like I'm still learning, I'm still growing in a lot of different ways. So, you know, that would be a really cool experience to kind of have that time.
What's a message of encouragement that you would like to offer the audience?
Whatever you like to do, be it to sing or write or draw, just stay connected with what made you love it in the first place, no matter what it is. So, like I talk to a lot of artists, and from our perspective, things can get a little hard. Like life can kind of suck the creativity out of you. We could also be really hard on ourselves, and the internet is a ruthless place, so it
Ain't that the truth?
doesn't make it easy, But at the end of the day, do what you do because you love to do it. If you want to tell a story, there's nothing stopping you from telling it. You just might have to do a little bit of extra work to get it out there, but just stay connected to what you love, the heart of what it is that you do. Because even with my job or the work that I do, if I don't keep that connection there, I could grow to resent something that I've enjoyed my whole life. And sometimes that means I have to give myself time to just draw something silly or, just not work related or, just kind of step back into that childhood wonder. At least that's what it is for me. So I say stay creative. I mean, stay loving it, like being creative.
Thank you. For folks that want to learn more about your work, about you, what's the best? You mentioned connectivity. So what's the best place to connect with you?
The best place to connect with me is on Instagram, which I believe my Instagram is b.gifted. So I have the same handle across everything, be gifted. That's BEA gifted, GIFTED. So that makes it easier to find me. You also may find me listed as Brittany Jackson. That's my real name. So, but I changed it because I wanted a name that has meaning to it, and B means blessed. And I wanted to, use my work as a blessing unto others and to use my gifts to bless others to help tell their stories. And so I changed it to
I
that.
love it. I
So if
love
you
it.
put in Be Gifted, you'll find me. Best way to connect with me is Instagram.
Amen. Amen. Bless Jackson, folks. Bless Jackson. And listen, you can find Summers here across all the different outlets, Amazon and other bookstores, published by Bloomsbury. Again, this is a beautiful, beautiful book. So I encourage you all to check it out, grab a copy, get it in the classrooms, read it in the libraries. This book definitely deserves to be amplified, and it's doing great. But let's continue to push it. So thank you, B, for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate your insight. Look forward to learning more about your work and seeing wonderful projects coming our way, whether through the form of books or in Target or in other places where we can see ourselves reflected. Thank you for reflecting us in your illustrations.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. And thank you for the interview.
All right, take care.